It's October 2nd, and currently, Category 2 Hurricane Imelda is making a direct impact in Bermuda right now as we speak. This is going to bring all hurricane impacts, and the impact is expected to be very significant. So, we're talking about surge, some 100-mile-an-hour sustained winds, gusting in excess of that, and then we're also expecting to see maybe some potential flooding from rainfall. But the main thing are going to be those sustained 100-mile-an-hour winds, some really high gusts, and then that storm surge, of course. Now, luckily, this is a relatively fast moving storm. It's moving at about 24 to 25 miles an hour, racing off to the east. So it's not like we're going to see one of those events where a storm just sits and we see the island get absolutely battered. But that still doesn't mean that we're not expecting to see some really big impacts, which are likely occurring right now. And this is the National Hurricane Center's cone of uncertainty. Of course, we can see Imelda making that impact in Bermuda right now. Luckily, there has been a hurricane warning issued for over 24 hours now, so there should have been enough time for some preparation to at least be done. But we are going to take away a couple of things from this. The first thing being is that the storm is expected to sort of pass on the more southern side of the island. So with that surge, the south and eastern side are expected to be the most heavily impacted. It doesn't really appear that the surge is going to be super terrible because this is a fast moving storm and it's also not a very large storm. However, it is still a powerful Category 2 hurricane, so we will likely see some pretty big surge impacts anyways. Another thing that we already touched on is that it's moving very quickly, 24 miles an hour, and it's probably only accelerating off to the east northeast currently. So luckily those impacts won't be super prolonged, but they're still going to be pretty big. Now, after Imelda impacts Bermuda like it's doing right now, it's going to race off into the Atlantic, and we're really going to be done with it altogether. We're going to be able to forget about Imelda, no more worrying about that storm. But unfortunately, right as Imelda departs, there is a new area of slight concern. It's only a 20% chance of formation out in the main development region, and there are a couple models which do kind of steer in that direction that we've been seeing a lot of these storms take. So I definitely think there is the potential for that, although we're really far out from really seeing anything develop at all. So it's a little too early to make these big assumptions, but something we are going to want to look out for are a lot of high pressure systems lingering off the coast. And we're also expecting to continue to see that pattern where we see a lot of fronts push off, kind of fending away those hurricanes. So even if this did form, the chance of this possibly becoming a landfalling storm would still be pretty small in my opinion. But once again, we're too far out to make those assumptions. And then there's also a lot of models which aren't even really showing this developing yet. So this is just a reminder that even though we're in October and we're starting to see hurricane season wind down, it is still not over, and we want to stay vigilant for at least the rest of the month. And if you look very closely, right about here is that invest that we're looking at. This actually looks pretty solid. There's a lot of thunderstorm activity there, so I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see further development. It's just a little too early to kind of rush to conclusions right now. But there are definitely a couple of models showing development. One is the GFS. Now, the GFS is kind of notorious for overspinning up storms and kind of overcooking them, so we want to take this with a grain of salt. We're not really seeing a bunch of agreements in the models yet, so we're still going to want to look out for that in the near future. But as for now, development is possible, and we're going to want to watch this one pretty closely. Now, moving away from the tropics back to the mainland US, we have a couple of areas where we could see some general thunderstorm activity today. One is going to be in Florida. We have a lot of flow across the state, and it's always pretty moist down there, as well as a trough being situated kind of on the eastern coast. We're going to see the storms moving from east to west today. So definitely some thunderstorms kind of all the way throughout the day today that you're going to want to watch out for. We have another little tongue or trunk sticking all the way up from the Louisiana coast all the way up into southern Illinois. I think this is a pretty conditional area for weather today. We do have a trough here, but the models, specifically the HRRR, aren't really showing that much development. But still, if you're in this green shaded region, be prepared for a couple of thunderstorms today. We could potentially see some more thunderstorms up in Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the Michigan Peninsula in the later afternoon hours, also along an area of troughing and frontal activity. However, that is another conditional area where I'm not super sure that we're going to see storms, but still, if you're in the screen shaded area, want to be aware that that is a possibility today. Now, one area which I think is almost guaranteed to see that threat of some thunderstorms come to fruition, it's going to be this line stretching all the way from the central California Valley out into central Montana. This is an area along some troughing, some frontal activity, and it's kind of an area where we're seeing that jet stream have a lot more activity as well. I think if you're anywhere in this green shaded area, you're almost kind of guaranteed to see some thunderstorms today. Then, of course, the last area is going to be this little sliver on the Washington and Oregon coast associated with a big cyclone rotating off the coast, maybe seeing some thunderstorms there today as well.